Okay, boys and girls, there has been one glaring, massive proposed change to One DnD that has the D&D 5e community kind of up in arms. I've seen a lot, and I mean a lot, of comments about this being the worst change ever, and I wanted to make a short video on the subject that I hope, will calm the tides a bit. At least I'm gonna try my best to kind of keep this thing short if I can. So if you hate it, okay, fine, but I've looked over it a few times now, and I don't think it's the worst thing of all time ever like some people do. So if you are one of these people out there saying that the sky is falling, give me a few moments to perhaps maybe give you a different perspective from how the designers are kind of coming at this. And I'm asking you guys to be open-minded, because if it sucked, I would 100% and have 100% said something sucked that the D&D team came up with, right? So I have no problems being critical about game design. So let's look at the topic from the first playtest that is the core of this issue. On page 18 and 19 of the playtest, link down in the description box of this video if you want to download it yourself, by the way. It gives us new rules for what a D20 test is. And it goes on to say, quote, if you roll a 1 on the D20 test automatically fails, regardless of any modifiers to the roll. On page 19, it says, quote, if you roll a 20 on the D20 test, the D20 test automatically succeeds regardless of any modifiers to the roll. Now, what this changes is the following. In Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, we do not automatically succeed on any skill checks, neither do we automatically fail. In One DnD, it now allows those to automatically fail and automatically succeed, and this is really the root of the issue, causing comments like this one. I, paraphrasing, quote, love pretty much everything except for just one thing. Skills should not crit. It sets a weird concept of, I could never fly before, but if I just roll a nat 20, it'll happen? Personally, I don't think so. Or this one, quote, nat 1 and nat 20 rules kinda sucks. I honestly have no problem with a 20 being a success. If they are rolling it, it means it's possible, but a character with a +9 to a check, expertise, rolling a 1 is a 10 and shouldn't auto-fail a simple check. It doesn't feel good and it doesn't make sense to me. Or this one, quote, honestly, if I'm at a feast with the king and roll a nat 1 for social faux pas, but my bonus gives me a total of 11 and the king rolls so low they only get a 10, I feel like the king should just laugh at my, quote, good joke, while the rest of the guests are completely aware that I was lucky there, end quote. Before I continue, I'd like to point out that this last example seems more like a contested roll, which we don't have clarification on yet from the playtest suggested. Or even this one, quote, I feel like I'm in the minority of this, but if they do want to make it so that every time you roll a d20 and get a 20, it is an automatic success, they need to put restrictions on who can roll. It is absolutely ridiculous to have the Outlander barbarian who has a negative in religion to roll a check against a cleric and succeed more. If we want to keep skills in specializations, then there should be more of a challenge for people that are not trained, end quote. And these are just a few examples that I pulled from my own comment section. We're not even talking about all the ones on Reddit or Twitter yet. So the way we want to look at this, and the way I look at this, is perhaps a little different from people who are worried about this change, and here's why. In theory, nothing about adding this rule should be changing anything. Seriously, having it codified into the book shouldn't actually change your games, because all this really is a perspective issue. Let me explain it a little better. Right now, in your D&D 5e games, when the Dungeon Master calls for a skill check, like an athletics check, as an example, the rules don't say specifically that a natural 1 should fail or that a natural 20 should succeed, but those rolls, if made by a player, should fail or succeed. Does that make sense? Basically, the reason for a Dungeon Master to call for a roll in the first place is because it can succeed or fail. So a dice roll is called for to determine whether that chance is in fact successful or not. The reason this seems so different is because whenever I see a comment like a few of these examples, they always set it up so that its success would be absolutely outrageous, like our comment saying suddenly a person could just fly, or that a failure would be absurd, like the character with a quote +9 to a check, rolling a 1 is a 10 and shouldn't auto fail a simple check. My retort to both of those would be an easy one. You don't roll at all. The Dungeon Master he's making a mistake to call for a roll in the first place. If a character has such a high modifier and the lock is quote so simple, there isn't a need for a roll. If the thought is that the task is so easy that even on a 1, a 5% chance wouldn't be enough to fail, then don't roll. The DM should just say, you realize the lock is very primitive and you easily pick it. If there's no reason a character should be able to jump a quarter of a mile over a chasm, then there's no roll needed. Even on a 20, they aren't going to sprout wings and make it over. The DM should just tell the player simply, the gap is obviously too far to jump, and your character Skull Taker easily recognizes he wouldn't be able to clear that gap. The reason codifying this into the new edition of One DnD is actually a good thing is for exactly that reason, guys. It helps reinforce to Dungeon Masters when to call for a roll or not. Because if these DMs really are out there going, there's a huge rock face in front of you, you can try to climb it if you want, give me an athletics check, I guess, then having the player roll a natural 20, and the DM looking at the player and telling them that they fall off halfway through because it's just too hard to climb, that feels bad. That feels really, really bad. Or trying to pick a lock and rolling literally the highest possible result and still failing? Then why are you even rolling? It's just not good game design to tell a player, I know you asked to roll, and you got the highest possible roll you even could roll, but now I'm telling you, you still fail. Remember guys, if you call for a roll on a pass or fail test, you need to be prepared for a 1 or a 20. If the highest result can't succeed or the lowest result can't fail, why are you rolling? It's perfectly okay to just tell the players what happens if they try stuff that is impossible narratively. You're allowed to narrate your game. The dice are only supposed to be there to determine the stuff that is uncertain. That's it. As far as the other crit changes suggested, like spells no longer critting, I'm gonna hold off on talking about those in this video. I just read enough comments all over the internet of people freaking out about this change, and I wanted to try to calm the tides a bit. So hopefully now people might have a different opinion and perspective on why the game designers are looking at making this change in the first place, which I personally find to be very reasonable. It's kind of already how I play the game anyways, and you know, it's probably how I would recommend and teach to other Dungeon Masters to approach it that way in the first place. If this is your first time here and you love role-playing games as much as I do, I would love to have you subscribe. I put out videos on DM tips, player tips, tutorials, and more stuff just like this. So if that sounds like something you might be interested in, just hit the subscribe button down below and come join us. I want to give a massive shout out to all of the incredible patrons over at welcomeadventures.com. Guys, thank you so much. Because of you, I get to keep doing what I love. And so for that, I'm just so grateful. If you guys like what I do here and you want to support more content like this and snag some rewards for yourself, welcomeadventures.com is a great place to do that. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Cody, and may your games be filled with awesome memories and even better friends. I'll catch you guys next time.